Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be painting the front cover of the new sketchbook that I'm starting. So in the last video is where I did the first page in this sketchbook and I made a new OC character, and the reason that I put off doing this video first was because I was so afraid to mess up the front of the sketchbook and I felt like I didn't have any of my paintbrushes that I needed at the time, and so I was able to get those and do this video. So for some reason, I've been like obsessed with swords lately. So in the first page I did a sword, and then on the cover I did a sword, so it kind of matches and I love the way it looks. I still don't feel like I got a small enough paintbrush for all the details in like the hand and the facial features, but I almost wish that I had a fine nib Posca pen, because I had the larger nib Posca pen, but it just wasn't good for details. I also noticed that the Posca pen was not as opaque as I was hoping it to be, so I had to go over it twice and then use paint over that to get it the white that I wanted it to be so that the black wasn't showing through. So I started off with the border because I felt like that was going to be the safest bet just to get me going and in the groove of painting again. And this video took forever to edit because I edited out all the times I dipped my paintbrush into the white paint, and there was a lot because sadly I didn't add water to the paint till towards the end, and that's what made the paint stretch farther, and I should have done that from the beginning, but I didn't. I only used white paint on this sketchbook because on my Illo sketchbook I painted the whole thing white and then went in with all the colors to make the elephant, and I wasn't a huge fan of how it looked, so I just wanted to do a simpler color pattern, so I just used white, and the design was kind of complex, and I'll put my inspo on the screen. I think I honestly took the longest on this outline, and it's kind of ridiculous because it wasn't even that detailed. It was just I had to fill in so much area with white paint, and the white paint wasn't opaque enough, so I had to layer it multiple times, so it took longer than I expected it would. So I used 3 pictures for the inspo behind this sketchbook cover because I really liked the way they did the border with the flowers around it, and I was a huge fan of the art style that they used. So I finally started on the outside flowers, and to be honest, this is the part where I wished I had a thinner paintbrush because I just feel like all the details were kind of missed because I was using such a thick paintbrush that it was hard to get thinner lines, and this was the smallest paintbrush I had, so I had to work with it. I don't think this sketchbook cover turned out awful, but I just think it would have been better if I had the skinnier lines so that I could put more detail into it. I also struggled because the sketchbook cover wasn't a smooth surface. It almost had like a canvas bumpy like texture, so it was harder to get straight lines. But like I said, once I put water in with my acrylic paint, it made it a lot smoother and I was able to get straighter lines. So for the flowers around the outside edge, I just doodled and did whatever I felt like doing at the time. And I really like the top peony looking flower with the sharp points and stuff. I just think it looked really good. And I wish I could have gotten that level of detail in that bottom flower because I think by the time I did the bottom part, I was just worn out and I just wanted to do something simple. I forgot to mention that I sketched out the whole sketchbook design in a white colored pencil so that I could see it on the black covered sketchbook. And I sketched this out so long ago, but I just wasn't feeling like painting it for a while. And once I finally did the first page of the sketchbook, I was like, okay, I need to get the cover painted because I'm starting to draw and sketch in this one, so I feel like it needed a completed cover. I was also scared that if I left it for any longer that the pencil would rub out and then all my hard work on the designing and the details would be gone because I would no longer be able to see it to paint it. So that was another thing that kind of influenced me to paint this sketchbook cover. So here's where I went in with the Posca pen, and you can tell just by the first layer that it is nowhere near opaque enough. And I don't know why that is because I also have a black, silver, and a gold one, and all of those are very opaque, but the white one for me just isn't. I don't know if I just got a bad marker or what, but I have to do multiple layers on any project I'm doing if I'm using the white Posca. On normal paper, if I wanted to use white, I would just use my white Jelly Roll pen because it seems like that one is way more opaque than the Posca pen, but maybe I just got the wrong one. I like Jelly Roll, but I feel like I can still get more opaque of a pen because even with the Jelly Roll one, I have to go over it at least twice, but it's still more opaque than the Posca. So I found this sketchbook at a garage sale and I think I paid like $1 or $2 for it. It has a whole bunch of paper in it and I don't know what brand it was just because it already was opened and stuff. And the paper is good for colored pencil, but I can kind of tell that it's going to bleed really heavily with markers, which I'm not too worried about because I can do alcohol markers in my Illo sketchbook and then save this one for like colored pencils, sketches, stuff like that. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of about this sketchbook is that it is spiral bound. I prefer the Moleskine like lays flat. I know this one will lay flat, but I just don't really like spiral bound sketchbooks because I feel like the pages rip out easier and there's more chances of you losing the artwork that's inside the sketchbook. It's kind of funny because usually I'm good about finishing sketchbooks before I buy another one, but because this one was so cheap, I just decided to get it. And at the same time, I did order a Moleskine sketchbook off of Amazon because these sketchbooks that I have were just too big and they weren't very good for like traveling. So I got one off Amazon that was smaller so that I could take it more places with me. And once that one comes in, I'll definitely do a review on that and compare like colored pencil, alcohol markers, watercolor, see what's good for that sketchbook. So at the moment, I'm going to have 3 unfinished sketchbooks, but I'm hoping, because I'm drawing way more than I used to because I'm just finally enjoying it more, that I will be able to finish my Illo sketchbook in the next coming up months. I know right now I am doing an Inktober fantasy challenge, so I'll probably have another video on that and give credit to the person that created it, because I could not think of ideas to draw for the life of me. So I looked at this 30-day challenge and it had like 2 or 3 words that they combined, and it forced me to make a picture out of that, and I actually have enjoyed it so much. And I'm thinking about doing another one because it's also going to prepare me for when the real Inktober comes around, so hopefully I can do a drawing a day. But right now I think I've done like 3 or 4 of those prompts in one day, so I've just been really enjoying how that's going. So once I was done painting the whole sketchbook, I used the Aleene's original acrylic sealer with matte finish, and this just makes it where the paint's not going to chip off or yellow or anything like that, and it just seals it in real nicely, so I'm not worried about anything happening to the cover. I think I just got this sealer from Walmart because at the time I was using it for after I painted shoes to seal them, and now I use it for my paintings, my colored pencil, sometimes even watercolors, just to make sure that none of the color and stuff is going to move around. I would not recommend using it on any ink stuff because it does tend to make it bleed, which you wouldn't need a sealer on ink anyways. But if you're using line art or anything like that on a colored pencil drawing or on anything like that, just be aware you're going to want to spray it before you put the line art on because it will bleed and ruin the artwork. And I speak from experience on that. It also has a really, really bad smell, so I would recommend spraying it outside so you're not inhaling that, because it can't be good for your lungs. So if you're not outside, just make sure you're in a well-ventilated area so that you're not inhaling those toxic fumes. I loved painting the fabric on this dress because there was just so many folds and I had a lot of fun doing it. I know a lot of people don't like to draw clothing and such like that, but this time I enjoyed doing it. I don't have anything more to say about this piece at this time, so I'm just going to let y'all watch and I'll be back in a bit. So for that hand holding the scales, I actually took a picture of my own hand and used it as reference because I wasn't quite happy with the ones that I was looking for online, and I felt like this one looked really good because I was able to put my hand how I wanted it exactly so that it fits in this drawing. This is around where I realized that if I added water to the acrylic paint, that it would be smoother and allow me to not have to dip my paintbrush in the white paint as often. And I know that you can do this, I just forget when I start painting. So I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't remember to the end because it would have made it a lot easier on myself. Just look how much smoother the paint is going on, and I'm not having to go over the lines multiple different times like I was beforehand. I'm sure it also would have helped if I used like a clear gesso type thing to make the paint like smoother and easier to use, but I'm on a budget and I don't feel like spending money on that when I could have just used water, so that's what I used. Honestly, I think the white paint I also got from Walmart for probably like 98 cents or something, because I'm always trying to find cheap art supplies alternatives. And I will admit, I did get Copic Chows for Christmas one year, but other than that, I don't really have super expensive art supplies. So if you're a beginner artist and you think that you need a lot of more expensive art supplies, you really don't. I think honestly, if you get the Ahuhu marker set, those are really good for how much they cost, and they are perfect alcohol blending marker. And you can just get some simple fine liners. You can use ballpoint pens, pencils, anything you have. My Colorase colored pencils I think were like 10 bucks on Amazon. So all the stuff that I'm using is really affordable, and I think the most expensive sketchbook I have would be my Illo sketchbook, considering this one was like $1 or $2 and the Illo sketchbook runs around $16 to $17. So if you are the type who gets more nervous in an expensive sketchbook, just buy a cheap sketchbook just so you can draw in it and you consider it your trash sketchbook or your actual sketchbook, so that you're not afraid to mess it up. And then when you become more confident with your art, move on to those more expensive sketchbooks and you can do more finished pieces. But when you're first starting out, don't force yourself to do finished pieces, because that's what I did. And I burned out of art and I had art block really badly for forever. And I actually just started getting back into art this summer. because of it. And now that I've been just sketching and not necessarily worried about what each page turns out, I'm able to create more art and be happier with it. I honestly will probably make a video on how I was able to get over art block and the tips and tricks that I use to help me out, because I know a lot of artists do struggle with that, and if I can help anybody get through that, it would be a huge thing for me. So watch out for that video on my channel later. This is the point where I started to really enjoy painting on the sketchbook, just because of how the flower turned out on the top. I just liked it a lot more than the other parts of the sketchbook, so I was able to enjoy painting more. This was the last couple pieces to the sketchbook cover, and I ended up liking the cover. It wasn't my favorite, but I think it turned out okay because I haven't used paint that often and I'm not used to using acrylic paint. So it was a harder medium to use, but at the same time, I'm trying to practice on all my mediums and not just alcohol markers or not just pencils, stuff like that, because I want to be a well-rounded artist. So my iPhone storage ended up being full like towards the end of this video, and I didn't get all the footage for it because of that, but I got most of it, so I'm not too worried about it, and I'll make sure to show the finished sketchbook cover at the end so that y'all see it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you have a good day. Bye.